My name is Robert Garza. I've been through family court for about 16 years. I am now pretty much an expert in legislation, false allegations, and basically reforming the family court. I've amended about 450 bills now. That's about 8 to 9 bills per state, and I've learned a lot in doing so. I've passed legislation in Texas, North Dakota, and most of these bills are about to go through all 50 states as soon as legislation starts in December. So I have quite a few bills. I have a new start at equality, which is 50-50 shared parenting. You have to be fit, willing, and able, and live within 25 miles, and that's pretty much it. And that's going to push, I think, all 50 states to have 50-50 in those states as soon as legislation starts. Another one I have is time taken, time back. And when somebody goes through a false allegation and that allegation is ruled out and there's no finding of abuse or neglect, then when they return the child, they shall return the time, the same type of time, and the same exact amount of time. So if someone misses a Christmas, then when they return the child, they'll get 2 Christmases in a row. And it disincentivizes making the false allegation. And it basically rights the wrong that the court did in taking your parental right away on a precaution. And so that one is really good, and it passed in Texas and in North Dakota. In Texas, it passed unanimous, bipartisan the first time, and the governor signed off on it on Father's Day. So that was a big deal. That was the first bill I passed. Another one is 3 strikes, and that one is interference with child custody, and that's on the criminal side, not the civil side. So when someone interferes right now, the cops come out and they say, it's a civil matter, go back to family court. Well, after my law passes, the cops will be able to give a $500 fine the first time, the second time, and then the third time it becomes a state jail felony, what it already is now. And this will be the only tool that law enforcement has to combat this type of behavior. There's quite a few bills. And then there's multiple ones. There's cameras in the courtroom. There's there's a 10-day rule for judges, that judges have to rule within 10 business days of a hearing or a trial. There's other ones that have like Zooms, that if the court is capable of doing Zoom, now the court shall let you do those Zooms, and if they want you in court, then you have to come to court. Then they have to write why you need to come to court. This will save a lot of money for parents that have to travel, hire another babysitter so you can go sit in a courtroom all day. You can just Zoom in, and it just saves a lot of expense for everybody, and it keeps a lot of people out of the courthouse. Another one is litigant access to transcripts. And so when somebody is indigent and they can't afford it, you can't write an order if you don't get that transcript. And when the transcript's $2,000, then you can't afford it on top of everything else that you're paying for. And so if you're indigent, this gives you access to those transcripts for free. A lot of people weaponize what's going on in criminal court, and they'll try to get criminal charges on you or allegations and bring them over to family court and weaponize those, even though you've not been found guilty of them. And so after this bill passes, basically it will keep, unless you're convicted of something and found guilty, then they can't bring it over into family court, and it keeps it out. Now, if it has to do with children or anything like that, or let's just say a DWI, then you have to have a whole nother hearing on it to see if the judge will allow it in family court. And so in doing so, it stops a lot of the games that people just try to get false allegations against someone in a criminal court, knowing that they're going to be dropped later. A lot of people do that. One of the last ones that I wrote was parental alienating behaviors. And what that one does is if there's parental alienating behaviors found in your case, if you're the one doing this, which is like false allegations, interference with child custody, gatekeeping, bad mouthing, if any of these behaviors are found to be in your case, then after this bill passes, that judge shall order you to pay all fees for all the professionals and opposing counsel. In doing so, it stops the behavior before it starts. Most of these things are done from attorneys teaching their litigants how to do this. After that, this is going to stop. So once my bills start passing through all 50 states, and even if they don't get passed, they're going to be talked about, and it's going to open up conversations on why they're needed and what all this abuse is about. And so I think once the general public has their eyes open to all these legal loopholes, they're going to see that family court's not what they thought it was. And I don't think it's going to take very long. I think we're at a big shift in it's a tipping point right now. And I think after January, it's going to just fall over, and it's going to open up a lot of people education-wise on what the family court's been doing, and they can't hide it anymore because of social media and because of all the advocates. I think the ways that my bills adapt for prevention is that it stops the behavior before it starts. The only way you can alienate a child is keeping them away from a parent for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, enough time for either the child to give up or to brainwash them or manipulate them. And the time taken, time back stops that bad behavior because it disincentivizes it, because when you return the child, you shall return the time. And in doing so, it gives you time to repair that parental bond that was broken by precaution by the court. The 3 strikes law literally solves this issue in a week. So if that wasn't there, you would have to go to family court. You would have to hire an attorney, $3,000 to $5,000, wait months, maybe weeks to, even several months to get into family court and litigate this for an enforcement action. With the 3 strikes law in place, that stops parental alienation literally within a week because it keeps you in contact with the child no matter what. It's literally solved within 7 days. In Texas, we had problems with our judges giving 20 strikes. And so literally when you file for this enforcement and spend thousands of dollars to get into family court, and the judge just gives them a slap on the hand, there's really no reprimand for it. And the alienator knows this, and they keep doing it. So our judges weren't doing anything about it. So we came up with a bill that in Texas that literally says on the 3rd strike in family court that the person that is guilty of this goes to jail. There is no more discretion. The judge only has discretion on how long they're in jail. But as far as that goes, on the 3rd strike in family court, there is no more discretion because the judges had a chance what they could have been doing. They didn't do it, and so we had to tighten that law up. So once these bills have been going through, I've gotten an overwhelming, happy, excited. People are starting to see a shift in family court, and people that didn't have any hope in it now have hope. And they can see where these bills are going to make a change, and so they're holding on longer. Maybe they're people that wanted to walk away aren't walking away. I've gotten quite a few just in the last couple of weeks of people that said, hey, thank you so much. You gave me hope. I was going to walk away. You told me to stay in there. I waited one more hearing, and now they have joint custody or something. And so, or primary custody because they saw where they were alienating the child or something like that, some of these behaviors. And so I think these bills are giving people hope like I never knew. And it's giving them a reason to fight. It's turning their pain into purpose. And I know how that feels. I was a parent just like any of these people. I didn't go to law school. I was just a normal parent that went through family court, that saw the legal loopholes and wrote legislation to shut them down. When I started this, I was just a parent that thought I was going to get a fair shake in family court. And that, my eyes were opened very quickly on that. I jumped through a couple of hoops. I thought, okay, they're going to see this now. The false allegations were done. And here came another false allegation. It was one right after the other. And then opposing counsel didn't want to get into family court. So after the allegation was ruled out, they waited, 2 or 3 months before they would accept a date to get into family court. And so it was just this constant over and over again. It took me 10 years to get to final trial. And because I wanted justice, I went through 43 plus false allegations. I spent about $700,000. I quit keeping track a couple of years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago now. But at that time, I'd spent over $700,000 just being able to be in my children's life. It shouldn't be that hard in Texas or any other state. And I'm not the only parent going through this. When I started putting it out there on social media, I saw that this was an epidemic. This is not just me. I thought I was worst case scenario. And then I started seeing all these other parents thought they were the worst case scenario. And now with social media, I think that's coming out. When I started going through this, I figured out that it was just a game. And if I went through enough hoops, then I would still have my kids. They wanted me supervised. I was like, fine. I get them every first, third, and fifth weekend. I'll take them Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They wanted me supervised. I paid $125 an hour. I was spending thousands of dollars just being able to see my children, and I didn't do anything. It was just a false allegation. And every time that we went into court to get my children back, they gave them back, but they never gave me the time back, even though I asked for it. That's where the time taken, time back was born. The judge said, well, let's just table it for final trial. But because of all the games, it took me 10 years to get to final trial, but I wanted that time back with my children. And when we got to final trial, she waited so long to rule on the case that she ruled on things that neither of us even pleaded for. Didn't even rule on the time back. At that point, I just took my children out of court because they've never known a life outside of family court. They've been in family court since they were 1 and 3. We exited when they were 13 and 15 is when the final trial was. At that point, I just wanted whatever time and let's just move forward. But I thought about this, and that's why the time taken, time back bill was, because I found out that you can change legislation through the legislators that the judicial branch has to go by. So literally you can rewrite the rules that they go by. So because the judge had the chance to do the right thing every time, 43 times, they could have gave me my time back. And it just wasn't me. It was everyone. Because they had a chance to do the right thing and they didn't, I went to our legislatures, told them what the problem was, and solved the issue. And now no judge in Texas has that discretion anymore. Now they shall give that time back when they return the child. And in doing so, hopefully it will curve more people that come behind me to not do that. When we did the time taken, time back, I could have retroactivated the law. That means I would have got 2 to 3 years back with my children. I didn't do that because it would have stopped up the family court system and everybody would have went back to family court to get their own time back. I gave up that. That way it would clean up the court systems. And the biggest part in travesty to all this, other than what they did to me and my children, were that my ex also weaponized CPS against us. But in doing so, what it did was it made it to where they were investigating false allegations rather than real allegations. This means a lot of children were being looked over that are being hurt that they didn't get to because they were too busy looking into our case. And now, because of the time taken, time back, that gives those resources back to those agencies. And even the district attorney's office, they were being weaponized because if the allegation is egregious enough in any state, doesn't matter. It has to do with children, so they're investigating you the same time CPS is. So that's 2 resources that's being weaponized, and then the family court on top of that. Just one bill of time taken, time back returns those resources to the court, to the DA, and to CPS. I think professionals need to understand that, unless you've been through this, it's not a normal thing. It's not like your child went with the other parent and until we can investigate this. The parent is grieving the loss of a living child. It's like that child is dead. I don't think, actually I know, unless you've never been through it, you won't understand this. But if it's that hard for a parent, enough that parent will commit suicide because they can't see that child and that bond is broken, or it's not even broken, it's shattered. And after about 30 days, the child gives up. That child literally splits. That child either has to believe that what the alienator is telling them about them, and that way they can distance themselves and hate that person rather than feel what they're feeling with all that hurt and pain of not seeing them. And it brainwashes them, it splits them. And if you can't take that hurt and pain as an adult, imagine it as a child and how innocent that child is. There is no therapy that I think in the world that can fix that. It may put a Band-Aid on it, but once it's broken, it's like shattering a glass and putting it together with super glue. Those cracks are always there. And the same thing, when that alienator does this to a child, when they even come back to your home, if they try to brainwash them and say, oh, your dad's abusive or your mom's abusive, if they see any type of behavior from you, like if you raise your voice, all of a sudden it triggers them and they go back into that, there it is, like you're the monster again. Like it's almost like a shift in your child. But these seeds that the alienator implants, no matter what it is, or if they say you don't drive safe, if the minute you get in the car, if you're not putting your seatbelt on, the child is already saying, please put your seatbelt on. Mom says you're not safe, da-da-da. They plant, and it shouldn't be that way. It's almost like watching Jaws and then trying to have the child go to a beach and have fun. They're not going to have fun. That's abusive. And that's what people need to understand, that parental alienation or any of this stuff, it's harming your child, that they're going to have literally for the rest of their lives and probably their children's lives, because they're not going to be the whole parent that they could have been because of what you did to them. In doing some of these laws, I was able to pass legislation in Texas. I was able to go to CLE classes, which is continuing education law for lawyers and judges. And I was telling them, there was about 200 lawyers and judges in this class. So I let them know that whenever custody falls below 40% to either parent, it puts the child at risk for alcoholism, teen pregnancy, high school dropout, incarceration. That's why we're seeing all the problems that we're seeing. And then if you look, standard possession for the last 50 years, standard possession to one parent, the parent that is the non-custodial, is about 29% for standard possession. Expanded standard's about 39%. Even with expanded standard, you're still putting that child at risk. The only thing that doesn't is pretty much 50-50. Our courts have been sentencing our children to be at risk for the last 50 years, and that's why we're seeing the problems that we're seeing. When our courts have when our courts have an obligation to do the right thing and they don't do it, right now they can do 50-50. They're not doing it, even though they have the opportunity to do it. Right now they're handing out the lowest standard of visitation, which is standard possession. And they're giving out the highest standard of child support. There's something wrong with our courts. I can go into Title 4D and all that other stuff, but I think this is the biggest thing is, and I think what the general public needs to be aware of is that they have the opportunity to do the right thing and they don't do it even without changing the law. The only reason that we're having to change the law is because they're not doing the right thing. I mean, it has to do with money, incentivization. They're not doing the right thing because they're incentivized not to. The more conflict, the more billable hours for their clients and courts and everything else. That's another thing. Attorneys, when you look at your bill, I don't know of any other paycheck when you go to Walmart or wherever you work and you get a statement of your hours that says you worked from 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, or whatever it is. It actually has the numbers that you worked. Only attorneys bill 1 hour here, 2 hours here, 3 hours here. They don't bill billable time slots. The reason for it is because if they did, you can actually go back through and see they double billed. How are they working on 3 cases from 3 to 4? That's why they don't bill that way. That's going to change. I think just to fix the legal loopholes that the family court has been doing, they have had the opportunity to do the right thing all these years, and they're not doing it. They're doing just the opposite. Dr. Warren Farrell had a quote, and it was that there could have been no other system designed to hurt the family more than the family court system in its present form. That's 100% correct. I hope I come up with a quote after it's fixed to rebut that, but I know Dr. Warren Farrell, so it's, but I'm going to send it to him one day after it's fixed and be like, how about now? I don't wish it on anyone, alienation, or even going through the family court, or even having yourself separated from your child. But when you do, like I said, it's like you're grieving the loss of a living child, and you have to find how to cope with that, whether it's family members, friends. When I was going through it, I did a Tuesday dinner night. It seemed like Tuesdays were the hardest part. Weekends were okay. There's always friends and family around. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday were the hardest. And so to break up those sections, I had Tuesday dinner nights. I always wanted to be a cook. And so I ordered Epicurious, the magazine. I would have friends over, said, look, just bring wine. I'll supply the food. And I made myself cook something every Tuesday different and never the same thing twice. But I had people around. I knew I looked forward to Tuesdays because Mondays were usually the hardest. You know, you go to church, you have friends on Sundays, but then that Monday was the worst because there wasn't anyone there, and that's when reality hit again. And so Monday made Tuesdays look forward to getting there. But when you're going through it, you have to find all kinds of tricks to be able to go to sleep. The anxiety is out the roof. You have to self-soothe. You have to find coping mechanisms. I would suggest go to therapy if you're having issues. You have to find some way to get yourself out of it. And the crazy part is legislation turned my pain into purpose. But once I started doing that, it fell very quick. Like all of the anxiety went away, because I found that I could do something to change so no other person has to go through kind of what we went through. Yeah, there was a lot of coping in there. You have all kinds of thoughts. If you have suicidal thoughts, definitely call a hotline. You want to hurt somebody else, don't ever do that. Like, think it, I get it, do not ever act on it. And so, go work out. Another mechanism. I think just family and friends are the biggest one. I remember the first couple of allegations. I was always there 24/7. They were my life. And when my daughter was in school, I would always go to the school once a week for lunch, twice a week for lunch. And the school loved having me there. After the allegations, my ex had called the school and said that I was a pedophile and whatever else. And so when I walked in, everyone was looking at me, just weird. And that was a huge shift because I couldn't let my daughter see that it bothered me. And because it's all about their reality and their perception. So I would take Uno, play with them, whatever, and then be out of there. But it took everything I had to not just break down and get upset, whether it was mad or sad, because these people treated me like I was already convicted of this stuff when it was just false allegations. But I had to be there for my children. And I think that's what people have to think about this, is no matter how bad you feel, your child is going to feel worse or be in a worse position if you don't find some way to get through it. In going through this, I was just a regular parent, just like everybody else. And I had to learn civil law, criminal law, constitutional law. And I lived through every one of these hearings and trials. My freedom, my life was on the line. These lawyers come in and they practice law. They're practicing with my life on the line. But I wanted to know why. I wanted to know every little nuance of what was happening and why it happened, even if it was a win or a loss. Like, what made this shift? And after spending about $700,000 in 16 years of court, I finally figured out the game rules, because that's all this is. It's literally a game. When you step back and look at the game rules of chess, this piece can move here, that piece can move there with certain things. And family court's basically the same way. And so when you see that, I was able to understand why the way things work. Not that I agree with the way it works. In fact, I have a whole nother thing for that. But after about 12, 13 years, I let go of all of my attorneys and I went pro se. But I went pro se when my children were 13, 15, somewhere around there. I wish I would have done this way earlier, 100%. And now, especially, I've been helping a lot of parents, and AI, with the help of AI, you can beat any attorney with AI. The problem is they're going to beat you on procedure. 100% of the time, you have to know the court, local rules, the rules of procedure, and all kinds of things. That's what AI can't help you with, is the local rules. Well, I guess it can. They can if they haven't published, but they're going to, and getting in evidence, that's another thing. You're going to have to learn other things that AI can't teach you. But if you can get in your own evidence, I think if your child's under the age of 12, absolutely go pro se, because you're going to learn in that amount of time and save enough money that you'll be able to beat the court system, and that learning curve is very short when you do that. Just recently, because I've only written these about 6 months, most of these bills for all these states, but the time taken, time back had been in Texas the last couple of years, and then now North Dakota. I've seen, because of the advocacy and the awareness that I've put out there with what the bills contain, that I've seen a lot of lawyers actually litigate the way that my bills are supposed to work, asking the judge to do it now before they're even implemented. And I have seen a big shift. And in doing so, I think that is one of the biggest things, is the education-wise. And I think social media is getting a big thing out there, because I have senators, House reps, Democrats, Republicans, attorneys, mental health people, all educating the legislature on my bills and testifying for them on why they should pass. And with social media, I put those clips out there, and that educates a massive amount of people on a mass level very quickly. Alienation is psychological abuse. It's emotional abuse. You can't measure it, but it's there. It's almost like love. You can't measure it, but everyone knows what it is. Alienation is the same thing. It's abuse, though, on the other side of it. And if people want to keep saying that it's junk science, that's like saying love is junk science. It's real. You can feel it. You go through it. But it's the worst type of abuse that you can do to somebody. I'd rather be hit with a belt or anything else, because those bruises heal. Those bones, if they break, they'll heal. That psychological abuse and emotional and mental abuse will not heal. You can put a Band-Aid on it. They can patch it up a little bit, but it never goes away. It's still being able to trigger, like I just told you, was any little instance will put them back there in that spot. Well, when professionals look at this, I think they're seeing it from a clinical point of view and not a real life point of view. I talked to Dr. Burnett and Ashish, and I asked him, did you all ever go through parental alienation? No. But yet they're teaching on it. It's 100% different when you go through it. And if people can't understand how I'm changing the laws, try going through parental alienation. That is the worst amount of pain and suffering that I think you could ever put a human through. Even more than death, because if my child had died, at least it's final. This is every day in and out, wondering where your child is, are they safe, are they this? If you ever turned around and your child is gone in a store, and for 2 seconds, that panic, that fear, imagine feeling that day in and day out. It's that type of fear and panic all the time, and people don't realize it until you go through it. But once you do, you're going to realize that you will do everything possible to not just make this world better for you not to go through it, but everyone else. When I was doing We the Parents, it's a documentary that came out, and we were having these discussions. So we would go to a theater, and they would rent out a theater and invite tons of people and watch We the Parents. And we would have a panel discussion about alienation and everything afterwards. My children went with me to those. They were pretty excited about it. In fact, my older daughter went to even some of the CPAC stuff, like where President Trump was and all these other political people, and she was getting people to come to our booth. When I was going through all these false allegations and they were all done, we were going into final trial, and they extended that out with home studies and psych evals, because if you don't do one within 6 months, you have to update. So we updated it, and it took another 1.5 years to update a psych eval, which is crazy. But right before final trial, my ex did the final false allegation and said it was a real allegation and a new allegation. And we didn't know what was going on. It was literally right before final trial. And they took the children away with a no contact order. This was the first time that they had ever done that. Every time it was supervised. Now it's no contact. And the kids are older. Think about it. They're 13 and 15 now, or 12 and 15 now. Through this whole time, they've been monitored with professionals and their own attorneys, their therapists, this whole time. Those 90 days that they separated us, it broke them. I was alienated when they came back. The judge saw through their stuff. It wasn't a new allegation. It was an old allegation being revisited. They knew, but we didn't know. But the court took them away on a precaution. Because they were so old, they did a no contact order. When they came back, you have no idea. They were scared. They were truly frightened that I was going to do something to them. Not in a like that way, but like in like harm them somehow. I don't know what their mother told them. Had to call the cops, showed them the court order, told them, look, I hadn't seen them in 90 days. And the cop said, yeah, I know that judge. You know, showed him the order. He was like, she never would have gave him back to you if there was something going on. He did an amazing job. He told my ex to go away, put the kids in the car. They're screaming, yelling, crying. I took them to the zoo. And that's the only thing I knew what to do. I really didn't say anything to them. I was just like, just let them get whatever out. And I took them straight to the zoo. That's where we had their best childhood memories. They loved the zoo. And so by the time we went to the zoo, I didn't tell them where we were going. We went there. And By the time we left, one was hanging on my arm and the other one wanted a ride on my back. As soon as we got in, their own childhood memories started flooding the alienation and rewriting it. I didn't learn this in a book. I just tried to think of what I could do. But for anyone watching this, if you can take your child and you've had enough time to have good memories with them, any place, doesn't matter where it was or what you were doing, or a game or ice skating or whatever it is, take them to those places and their own childhood memories will flood the alienation, hopefully, and break that barrier before you start speaking to them or anything else. I think that will save 90% of that. I feel, and I know probably therapists aren't going to like this one, you should return the child as fast as you took it. I think if the courts did that, there would be none of this mess going on. And if therapists really believed in what I just said about reuniting the child, if you ever look at those videos where they have the military people that have been gone for 3 years come and surprise them at school and they run and cry and wail in excitement and joy, that's the type of response that you should get if someone's not brainwashing them or alienate them or anything else. They should treat alienation and false allegations as one of the worst things that you can do to a child. And when they start reprimanding them in that way on what those really are, you'll see a big shift in this. And if therapists truly believe that that is the answer, would you trade your job to save? Not trade your job. Would you recommend them not coming to you as a therapist if you're knowing that rewriting those memories with the places that they had already good memories at would fix it more than you? I don't know if it's a worker getting it wrong or they're getting it right for them. And what I'm saying is, we had a guardian ad litem, actually an amicus attorney. She was an attorney. She came in and investigated the false allegations that my ex did and went and interviewed about 13 people, from police to CPS to whatever. She came out and said, none of this should have ever happened, and it was false. Well, every time after that, she went to my ex and right before a hearing, I guess gave her that, oh, she sees through this or through that, and then she would do it to me. And she played devil's advocate both ways, asked for big retainers, that we're going to get in here, we're going to solve this. And then she solved it literally the first time she came in within a month. She kept playing the game because she knew my ex had a lot of money and ran up a $160,000 bill. The child's attorney, where I had to pay half and she had to pay half. That's what I said. Is it more that they don't know what's going on or they don't want to solve what's going on? Same thing with the family courts right now. They have the opportunity to do what they should do, but they're not doing it. And I feel that that's the problem when you're doing, there's no reason when you go to a law firm or a guardian ad litem or an amicus attorney to ask for your financials. None. You either pay the bill or you don't. But if you show them how much you have, there's going to be games played, and this is why the problem that we're seeing too. And I think that one's another law, that you shouldn't show financials. You either pay the bill, you pay the retainer, you go through it, and that's it. But you're not going to get people's financials on the first hearing. In going through this all these years, I may look calm or whatever else, and I am. I'm actually this type of person. I ask God not to change my heart in all of this. As of right now, just during Easter, my daughter, I had her for Easter because the other one aged out. And she was like, hey, Dad, we went to church and everything. And she was like, my mom's having a dinner at her house. Can I go? I was like, of course you can. Called a friend. I was talking to them. They're like, you let your daughter go even after your ex did all that to you? I'm like, well, yeah. They're like, why would you let her go? I'm like, well, had my ex not done this, would I have let her gone anyway? Yes. So I do whatever I would have done had my ex not done what they've done. And that's the way I parent and still parent. But I am not the same person that I was. I would love to pick up babies and spin them around and be loving and whatever. But because of the false allegations, I don't even want to even go there. I won't pick up another person's baby or anything else. And so it does change you. I wish it wouldn't have, because of how much I love children. And I hope that when I have, more grandchildren or anything else, that it doesn't affect, the way that I act towards them. But it does. You are not the same person when you go through this. You can't possibly be, because you have to it's almost like a samurai sword. When you put a piece of metal in a fire, that's you before parental alienation. And it's beating those impurities out of you, the poor me, poor this, poor that. At the end of this, you're not going to feel sorry for yourself. You're going to want to change the system. And the sad part is, the family courts is the ones that are breeding the advocates. You've never heard someone come out of court like, wow, the judge really applied the law on that one. You never hear that. Why is it? They're breeding advocates at a rate that they're not even understanding. And this is where the tipping point is. Now the advocates are more than the family courts, and they understand the wrongs that have been done, and they're about to right those wrongs. I think if you go to my website, sign up as an advocate, robertgarza.us, you can turn your pain into purpose. I've already amended the bills for every state. Pick a bill that you want that would have helped you. If you had false allegations, use time taken, time back. If you had 3 strikes for interference with child custody, get that one passed. You don't have to change all of them. Just pick one that would have helped you 90% of the time. That will turn your pain into purpose, because when you can change the law in your state and you give it to this state senator or this House rep and you go testify and you tell the legislators what happened to you because the judge didn't follow the laws in your case, or they could have, or this bill could have helped you because of this, it turns all of that hurt and pain into a purpose that I can only tell you it's going to change you. And it's going to change you for the better. I definitely think that I am a different person than I was. I can't even recognize the person that I was before, because I've changed so much. And it's not appearance, it's not demeanor or anything else, because I've always been calm. But you realize that there's nothing that you can go through that can hurt you anymore after going through parental alienation. There's nothing that you fear. Nobody can do anything. It really changes you for a good, better version of you, I guess. But you never still should have had to go through that. So what these bills are meant to do is stop alienation before it starts. You have all these professionals at this conference talking about putting it in the DSM and everything, and I think it does belong there. But at that point, it's too late. You want to stop it before it starts, and the time taken, time back stops the allegations, so you can't separate the child, and if they do, they give that time back to repair that parental bond, and the 3 strikes law puts that child back in your life literally within a week. And it doesn't give the alienator time to split that child. And with those 2 in place, and with 50-50, all the other bills won't be needed. Those 3 bills will solve a lot of these issues that are going on in family court by themselves. And they're beautiful bills. I just recently finished a bill, and this one takes the burden of proof from preponderance of evidence. Preponderance of evidence in all 50 states is 50% plus a feather. It's literally, is it more true or less true? That's the way family court weighs things. So you think you're getting a bad shake in family court. You're not. It's just the preponderance of evidence is why you're getting these protective orders, restraining orders with no evidence really at all, because they're like, it sounds more true than less true. That's literally how these judges see it, because that's the way that the game rules are. Clear and convincing evidence is the next stage. And the only way that you can take a parental right away or terminate parents' rights is with clear and convincing evidence right now, and that's all 50 states. So in criminal court, the next one up is beyond a reasonable doubt. That's like 98%. That's to convict somebody of something. Only family court has that low threshold where you can just make an allegation or an affidavit and all of a sudden you're basically guilty until proven innocent. My new bill heightens preponderance of evidence to clear and convincing. If I do away with preponderance of evidence, then now someone can get on the stand and say whatever they want. The judge is they can commit perjury all day long. Judge is going to say, prove it. They can make a false allegation. Judge is going to say, prove it. I need clear and convincing evidence of that. I don't know, but I doubt it, because it's not an enforceable thing to go by a different standard than what's already in the law. Someone can argue it. Even in a court order, someone can argue it. I've learned so much that I could talk for hours on what you should and shouldn't do and put in a court order and how they're getting around all this stuff. The most problem that we're seeing with family courts is that it's not really the discretion, it's the gray areas that don't tell the judge what to do. And so in all my bills, they're one-pagers, and they're very concise and to the point. And they say, shall, and do this. Give the same type of time, the same exact amount of time. There is no gray areas in any of my bills. And that's what's going to change family court, because the gray areas is where there's that big discrepancy that they have. I'm not taking away their discretion. I'm just giving them the exact things that they have to do once this is triggered. So with the way that my website's set up right now, and I'm helping advocates change the laws in their own states, we're going to have the largest lobbying group in the nation, because these bills are teaching these litigants and these advocates how to lobby to change the laws that hurt them. This, I think, is what's going to help family court come back to what it should be, and there won't be all this mess that's going on. And it's going to also give this constant law all over the nation, where it's not so Colorado's different from Texas, Texas is different from here. All of these laws in family court, it didn't matter if you live in Colorado, you're going to get tried the same. The standard is going to be the same. I'm going to try to standardize basically all 50 states, no matter what state you live in, all of these apply in some way, shape, or form. And I think that is what's going to change family law completely. I don't. Actually, I know that it can't be. You can't litigate crazy. You can't. There is no amount of litigation that can stop a narcissist. And the way that the family court rules are that if you don't like what you have, that you can keep refiling, it won't stop anything. I think the biggest problem that we have in family court is the attorneys teaching the litigants how to play these games, because it's billable hours. If there wasn't that, then there wouldn't be the mess that we're seeing now. They're doing it at a cost of our children. And that's why the one that I have for alienating behaviors is going to stop a lot of this mess, because when I have to pay opposing counsel and all the professionals, I'm going to turn my attorney and be like, he taught me how to do it. And then I'm going to put sanctions from the bar for him because I'm mad now, right? Because I have to pay everybody because he's the one that taught me how to do it, but now I'm caught. So it's going to stop the behavior before it starts. All of the bills that I have stop the behavior before it starts. Once you go through this and you get your child back at some point, everything that you went through fades like a nightmare. It's almost like you went to, like, you've been caught in this nightmare. You can't run, you can't scream, you can't do anything. And while you're in that nightmare and you're asleep, it feels like forever. And you're terrified and you're whatever. And so when you wake up, that memory just starts fading, and all of a sudden you can't remember what it was about. It was something about not being able to talk or running in quicksand. When you get your children back, I promise you, you're going to think about this, because when you get your children back, all of that you went through, the family court, all that stuff, it fades like it's a nightmare, and you won't remember hardly any of it. You went through it, don't get me wrong, but all that pain that you were feeling in that time, and that anxiety and that suffering and that worry and paranoia and everything else, it's gone. Like you never went through it. The parent-child bond's always been there. Look at our bond with God. When we pull away from him, we're alienating him also. We're his children. It shouldn't be what we're doing. Did you know alienation breaks 4 of the 10 commandments? What other thing do you know that breaks so many commandments at once? Honor the Father. Thou shalt not covet. What was the other ones? Yeah, there was 4 of them. Thou shalt not kill. You are literally killing half of that child in alienation. And then there was one more. I can read it, but it literally breaks 4 of the 10 commandments. That's how bad alienation is. The churches should be behind this, 100%. The people that are against 50-50 shared parenting right now will be remembered with the same stain that women couldn't vote, slavery, all of that. It's going to be met with the same shame. They have the right to do the right thing right now, and they won't. And soon, they're not going to have that right anymore, and it's going to be taken. But the people that were for what they're doing right now is going to be met with that same shame. The scales will be balanced. They're balanced right now when you give one parent this and the other one this. That's what it's balanced at right now. Soon, it will be this. And that's where the new start of equality is.